afternoon, all, and welcome to another edition of the Sal Greco Show. And I'm your host, Sal Greco. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for being in the chat today. This is going to be very interesting today. If you can, please hit that like, share, subscribe button, hit that notification button as well. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Rumble, hit that like button, hit that Rumble button if you can. And if you're streaming, watching us live on X, streaming on X right now, please hit that like button, repost this, and share this out to all your friends. And some of your friends, remember, are in the low information bubble and need to be up to speed, put up to speed real quick. Well, folks, it's been a wild weekend, and it's a wild last few days. Of course, the New York City Police Department, my alma mater here, they have a lot of issues. And so I'm just going to start with that because it's a big thing. And I'm going to have one of my brothers in the Finest Unfiltered, Marlon Bethel, come on. But I wanted to read off a couple of things. Well, first of all, I had posted something a couple of days ago on X. So this is important. Meanwhile, back in Queens is commanding officer of the 106 precinct, Captain Berkeley Van Toll, may be downgrading crimes, fudging numbers at the behest of Eric Adams and his Crumbs crew, like us at the Finest Unfiltered. I've been telling you for years with evidence. What I'm talking about is, not too long ago, we mentioned that there was a numbers for numbers scheme going on in transit. From transit, this has now become a body for body scam, downgrading crimes. They actually had moved the commanding officer from one of these commands, and they made him the fall guy. He's a captain. He'll probably get rewarded anyway. But we told you that was where it started, and now it's spread. This is under the soccer mom, Jessica Tisch. Remember, she's got no clue how the New York City Police Department culture is, but somehow she's the head of it. And so this came out over the weekend, and this is in the 106th precinct. And I got a lot of details of 106, what's going on here. But here's the 106th precinct. So this article comes out in the Queens Chronicle, all right? And it's very important. It's written by Kristen Guglielmo from the Queens Chronicle. And the headline is, HB demands more from the 106th precinct. Civic group expresses frustration with NYPD's presence in the area. So I'm going to read this off. It's really quick. The Howard Beach Lindenwood Civics meeting on Zoom Tuesday night got heated as members of the community expressed dissatisfaction with the work of the NYPD's 106th precinct. Phyllis Incerillo, the Civics co-president, and residents do not believe Howard Beach is adequately protected by patrol cars. We are in 100% agreement of that, Incerillo said, adding that she had asked for cruisers' GPS locations to be shared with the Civic, but was denied that request. I want to know when patrol cars are coming through our neighborhood, Incerillo said. We have a lot of officers that are refusing to take reports. Honestly, we are just sick of it. Assistant Chief Christopher McIntosh, the commanding officer of Patrol Borough Queens South, told the group that any officer caught not taking a report will be suspended. That's totally antithetical to our culture in the NYPD, he said. As Captain Berkeley Van Toll, the 106 commanding officer, relayed crime statistics that showed most major crime down in Sector Adam, which encompasses Howard Beach, Incerillo said she had been walking her dog 5 times a day and had not seen any police cars. I do know that cops are not there, but you don't know because you're not out checking, she said. We made it more than known to you that we are unhappy with the police presence here, and there's no response to that. Van Toll shared his email addresses with the group so residents could reach out directly regarding their issues, and McIntosh said he would have cops patrolling with their lights on at night. But when Incerillo requested more presence on Cross Bay Boulevard, he responded, that might be an issue until the fall, as cops are relocated to beach detail during the summer. Incerillo said she wants NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch to know about the dissatisfaction. We love the police officers there, Incerillo said of the 106. We thank them constantly, but we have zero confidence in the leadership there. So this is an important thing. And I just want to give you a little roundabout, little bit of info on Mr. Van Toll, Captain Van Toll, okay? So he was the ICO of Highway 1. Okay, that's Integrity Control Officer, which he was a micromanager there apparently, and not well liked by his constituents. And they basically threw a party on his way out the door. But as the XO in Manhattan South, that's where he was before he was the 106 commanding officer. He was the XO, which is executive officer. He was the captain of the precinct. There was a commanding officer on top of him that had final say. But and this is, we're gonna say alleged so that nobody gets offended. But this is coming from people that he worked with and worked in and around him. They called him that he's quote clueless, incompetent, makes things difficult. But the biggest thing was that he messed with all the supervisors, meaning lieutenants and sergeants. He always messed around with them, which falls in line with the Crumbs crew, because I believe I was definitely there when John Schell, as a captain, did the exact same thing. He's very close with the former chief of Queens South, Kevin Williams. If you remember him, he had his phones taken by the FBI and retired in a cloud of dust. So he's close, very chummy with them. And he also tried to suspend someone in the command. But of course, the CO squashed that twice. He's a micromanager who wants you to send him tons of emails during the day, which is funny. The article mentioned, write me an email, because that's what he likes to see, is lots of emails. So he could, pester people with that. Also, I'm going to read this one to you, because apparently there's an incident that had occurred there, just to show you roundabout. So allegedly, we'll say, this incident that occurred at a 2 p.m. on we'll say maybe a few months ago, in and around 114th Place, next to 115th Street and 150th Avenue. A slew of people were, I guess, taking Cadillac converters off of vehicles. There was a camera from where the complainant that had called 911 showed these individuals taking the Cadillac converters off the vehicles, okay? So the camera shows the perpetrators, their vehicles, the vehicles that they were taking the Cadillac converters off of with their license plates. Obviously calls 911. So apparently the patrol sergeant shows up. Obviously they have to take a report, which would be criminal mischief. Also, it's a grand larceny. Cadillac converters are very expensive. But allegedly, Captain Van Tol tells the sergeant, we're not taking that major. We're not doing that. We're not taking grand larceny. You're going to make it a petty larceny. And you know why he's going to make that a petty larceny? Because he says, although online, the dealership sells the Cadillac converter at whatever price it is, he found it cheaper on a offbeat website or some website that just sells random parts. So kind of like he found it online cheaper somewhere. And because of that, that report was made a petty larceny, not sent to the detective squad, a.k.a. the PDU and the 106 precinct. And that sergeant gets rewarded by being promoted to the crime analysis team, where he could squash all kinds of reports all day long, which is where all the number fudging begins. And apparently and allegedly, that's how Mr. Van Tol gets ahead. So that's a little bit, I got a little bit more. But before that, I want to bring on Marlon Bethel. And Marlon, I know you're here to listen to this because you're very analytical. What is your take on that so far? Because there's even more. You're muted.
Guys, yeah. Sorry about that. Today I'm as much of a listener to Sal as you guys are, because Sal is dropping some news on us today. But initially my thoughts on this are that this touches on a lot of things we've mentioned in the past. A couple of weeks ago, we noted that because of All Out, what's happening is a lot of the precincts in the city with a higher quality of life, they're having offices taken from them for the summer and placed in high crime areas. Now, the problem is when you do that, those precincts now spike in crime. So we see this is a problem that we talk about all the time, that everything in the NYPD, a lot of the problems in the NYPD right now stem from the fact that it's understaffed. Okay. So if you have a small group of cops right now, you don't have enough cops right now. Okay. So you're just shifting them about. All you're doing is you're moving chairs on the deck. Okay. You still have the same amount of chairs. Okay. And that's what's happening. And that is what I'm willing to bet is happening at the 106 precinct. And I note that specifically because there's a quote in there where the captain responds to them, that he responds to a question about increasing the manpower for the fall, increasing the manpower, and he basically states it's a problem until the fall. Well, what he's alluding to is the summer all out. So that's important to keep in mind as we go further ahead. And I think I've said this to Sal offline, that this is going to come up again before the summer's up, because we saw the incident that happened in the 6-1 precinct. 6-1 precinct is another area that's not traditionally like a high crime area, especially the part of the 6-1 precinct, Avenue U, where that gentleman was robbed at gunpoint in daylight for his chain. So keep an eye on this. It's going to pop up again.
Yeah, I want to mention another thing here, because I see this person's in the chat, Real Maldi 5D channel. So they did send me a story from the 106. This is a citizen, by the way. This isn't some cop, so people could start, don't say, oh, rat, snitch. These are people. These are the citizens. These are the people you heard in that article. These are the 106 citizens. Yes, they love the cops, but they know that something is wrong. Because I'm going to point to you an article. What does it say? Any cop not taking a report. You just heard story of them taking a report and what happens with it. Okay, so let's stop blaming the lowest person on the totem pole, because that's what they like to do. Okay, you call internal affairs. What do? Well, if it involves a cop, like when it involved, they made something about me, they put the full force and spent millions of dollars on trying to crush me. But when it comes to the executives, the commissioners, those go away. If you haven't noticed, nothing ever goes the way it should. They stop investigations. They close them out. We've proven that with John and Eric, right? On Aficionado Unfiltered. But this was an incident that was told to me here. So apparently over the weekend, the entire precinct was non-existent. This is from Thursday to, I believe, Sunday. There was a party. Right, it's a party in front of it's in a house, but it's on a two-way street. Okay, there's fights in the street. There's all kinds of chaos you can imagine. Liquor, loud music, fights. They're throwing things at cars. So they call what they call 911. Right, they're calling a precinct and saying, "What are we going to do out of it?" It's an unsanctioned party going on nonstop for days. So. The sergeant that answers the phone is the desk sergeant, I believe, or whoever was there in the precinct, clearly a supervisor. He said that there's only 2 cars at night. There's only 2 cars at one given time, and only 1 Saturday night. So that means you only have 2 cars to 1 car available. And they said there was at least 100 calls pending, meaning 100 911 calls pending on the list that they haven't even gotten to. This is on a Saturday night. So obviously they called internal affairs about this, because there's a problem here. There's a misconnect. And if there's not enough cops, then you need to call the borough, right? Which would be the CO, Mr. Van Tol, calling the borough or someone for him, saying we need cars here. We have chaos in the street, which you're going to take felonies, right? But they're not taking felonies by not showing up. Don't go there, ignore them, hopefully this all goes away. So now when this person calls 911 and then calls IEB, obviously this report, that investigation should go where, Marlon? Does it fall on the feet of the cops, or does it fall on the feet of the commanding officers? Clearly, I don't know. He's clearly trying to cover for the fact that he has no cops and he doesn't want to take felonies because that's a felony. But we already know what they're really doing behind the scenes. They're fudging those numbers.
Yeah. So it's important to note right now that the 106, I'm looking at that comp stat right now, and they're actually up in grand larceny auto. So it's something to keep in mind now. But yeah. But yeah, we've talked about this before, the dangers of like having a patrol, which is the backbone of the job. Okay. Patrol is, those of you who aren't as familiar with the minutia of the police department. Patrol, whenever you call 911, that's patrol. Okay. Whenever you every your precinct is divided into sectors, and those sectors have officers assigned to it on each platoon, and they're the ones who are reporting to 911. Now we have additional specialized units that their job is primarily to go after, to be more aggressive, because they're not as attached to the radio as, say, patrol is. Now here's the problem, right? If patrol is already understaffed, what does that tell you? That the cops are going from job to job to job, and they don't have time to address issues that might have come up on patrol. Say, for instance, you're driving around and you see a group of guys on a corner and they're arguing, and there's a chance that this thing is going to erupt into something worse. Okay. Or you see guys casing a store or whatever. You don't have the time to go and investigate that if you're going from job to job to job. And what does that mean? That means that there are these little issues, like in the case of that GLA or that GLA, that are going to happen because the cops don't have the time to take it, to go down that block at a slow pace and to stop and investigate anything that catches their eye if they have to respond to a 911 call, which takes priority. So this is a problem.
And the thing is see, this all out, just to give you a little bit of this all out. This was a program designed to get what we call in the job house mouses out into the street, meaning the cop that works in, now I'm big into civilianizing the police department. Crime analysis does not need a police officer in that office. All these little units, the TS, the 124 room, they don't need a cop. You don't. That cop should be on patrol. When you take 31,000 head count in the NYPD, allegedly, it might be probably even less. It's probably like 27,000, because they count everyone retired. They're on the books for 2 years running time. The cops should not be taking reports inside of a precinct. You need people on the street. Then why isn't that person that's crime analysis out in the street? A civilian could do that job. They're just on a computer all day looking at a screen. That's what they're doing. Picking up the phone. Oh, it's the 106 precinct. That could be a civilian, right? But we can't do that, Marlon, because a lot of these people are protected. They're in a protected class. They need to be put inside because a lot of them are connected to, whether it be Crumbs or whoever, the Crumbs crew. That's why you see not enough cops out there. So, but this program was designed to take those people I mentioned out into the street. Out into the street. What did it turn into after year one? There were guys that were on patrol, meaning regular cops that worked every day. They went to all out. And now what's short? The people are supposed to be out in the street. So if you're supposed to pull out, Marlon, four, 6 cars a night, now you're down to what? You got to give them 4 cops, you lose 2 cars. So now you're down to 4 cars or 3 cars or 2 cars. That's what happened in the 106. Because the admin lieutenants people, their cops are not going anywhere. That's where they should be out at all out. That's what it's designed to be. So that problem, soccer mom never resolved. She let that run rampant. So that's part of the problem here. The other problem I'm having with this, Small, is that why are they saying the cops aren't taking reports? Why is it always the cop's fault? The cop does whatever the leadership wants, because if they move a little bit here or move a little bit there, their career is over, because that's what ends up happening. So they're trying to blame the cops either not showing up or not taking a report when you know that one, they're strangled in with the all-out thing, because you're sending the very cops that are out in the street out to this all-out instead of the one working for the admin lieutenant doing nothing and making all this overtime at a freaking computer all day, which is a whole nother subject we could get into. But then you're taking reports and you're misclassifying them on purpose to make yourself look better, because obviously Vantol comes from the Crumbs crew. If you haven't realized, he's connected to Crumbs. So he's down. If they're downgrading crimes, Marlon, how does it become the cops' fault? Which I heard them try to blame, because you know this is gonna hit all the way to the top. So they were already trying to say, well, it's the cops' fault. That's what I'm seeing.
Well. Also, in that article, there's a quote from the chief, and he says any cop caught not taking a report will be what he said. Basically, will be disciplined, and that's kind of, I find that hilarious, because do you think it's the cop not taking that report, or is it the supervisor, telling him, to downgrade it or to classify it as something else? Which one do you think it is, Chief? You see how quickly it is to throw the blue shirt under the bus, yeah. So this, what's old is always new again in the NYPD. We go on these circles that eventually we go back again. Remember in the mid-teens, I've talked about this before. In the mid-teens, we were supposed to go to more of a community-centric model where the precincts had more autonomy. And precincts had like cops were supposed to be better trained, meaning we had a field training officer now, which me and Sal didn't. They just threw us an impact. And here we are seeing things are going in reverse again. Where forget about a community centric model. Now we're going back to centralized at 1PP and shifting bodies around on foot posts that are unfamiliar with neighborhoods, instead of leaving the cops in the neighborhoods, letting them learn the layout of their community, and because who's going to know best how to help the community but the cop who's been there for like years, right? And here we are going back in reverse again, back to the bad, the worst of the impact era,
Yeah, Michael P. said allegedly only reason this idiot got a command was because of the previous borough commander, all connected. Prior to that, no one wanted that idiot. He's talking about Chief Kevin Williams, and that's the connection of how he got there. Meanwhile, you got someone in the comments. I guess they must be one of the Crumbs crew cronies saying everything is hunky dory there. Ignore all the overwhelming people, the overwhelmingly majority saying the opposite and complaining. Everything is fine here. So it's clearly must be trained by Eric Adams himself. So
this if I may.
Yeah.
Kevin Williams, by the way, comes up as being Sal just mentioned. He's part of that crew, because his name comes up in Sergeant Ludman's lawsuit against Tim Pearson. So
exactly, he's part of the Crumbs crew.
Yeah.
It's like, and he had one of his own trying to come in here, trying to throw self-diffuge there. Shout out to Cafecito Break, said all our gents and everyone blessings. God bless you, Cafecito. I'm going to say this now. I want to put this up on the screen. So with everything that we're saying, put up this post, because this came up just yesterday. We found out about. So for all his misdeeds right here, NYPD Captain Berkeley Vantol, the 106 Precinct Commanding Officer, is getting promoted this Friday despite allegations of downgrading crimes and number fudging for his pals in the Crumbs crew. And, of course, I put that you could read the article, and on the bottom there, you'll see his name. It says Deputy Inspector. Marlon, in this administration, you get rewarded for, putting your head down and cowtailing to whatever they want. And of course, incompetence runs the entire place.
Yeah. So you see that connection to the crew. Okay, that whole Banks, Madry, Pearson, that entire crew, and as we know, these guys are all buddies of Eric Adams. So think of it for a second. Eric Adams, whose political platform is safety, public safety. He's a public safety mayor, right? And what's happening now? What's the worst thing that could happen to him now? Is that we don't have public safety, right? So his guys are incentivized to downgrade crimes at least long enough to get Eric Adams reelected right now. And it doesn't surprise me that this comes up again.
No, this came, and it all happened at once, because finally the community had enough. They made it well known that there's not enough cops around. They're not taking reports. Why? Oh, because they're downgrading reports, and it's coming from the very top. It's not Officer Joe and Officer Jane that are downgrading reports. That's not on them. That's going to be the leadership. So the leadership has a problem there. That's the problem, that the leadership is leading the community down the wrong road, basically. And they have every right, first of all, to complain and do whatever, because guess what? As a cop, and especially in a police department, you work for the people, not the other way around. I know many in the Crumbs crew believe the other way around, but it's actually that you work for the people. So they control the tempo, we'll say, of what's going to happen there. So when they're complaining about something, especially to the commanding officer and the chief that took over for that other guy, Kevin Williams, your answer can't be, oh, well, the cops, we don't have enough cops, and anyone not taking report, we're going to punish them. Because now what they're going to do is go back and they're going to try to pin something on the lowest guy in the totem pole. And you know already there's an internal affairs log on what happened over the last few days where they had, we don't have anyone here. There's only 2 cars, 1 car, 100 jobs pending. So there's nothing we could do about the illegal block party that's going on. No, there's a lot they could do. It falls on the CO. That's where it falls on. But he's getting promoted. So he's getting promoted for all this incompetence. So, I mean, this is a running theme in the Eric Adams administration. It's really unbelievable.
Yeah. And mind you, I don't envy any commanding officer in this situation right now, because I went to my community board meeting and I asked the question to our precinct commander. I asked him how many cops he lost to All Out, and the answer is around 16. So and it's he didn't really want to say that answer. Okay, so I don't envy their position, but you have to let the communities know, okay, so that you may not be able to speak up against this, or you may not want to, right? But you should at least let the community boards know, or your community council know, so that they could put pressure on the city, okay? Because in the long run, think of it for a second. If they put pressure on the city and the city puts extra manpower in your precinct, you benefit from that. Because if crime keeps going up in your precinct, they don't care that they didn't give you enough cops. You're the one who's gonna get booted. So and if you do shenanigans and start lowering crime, then again, it's gonna be on you. They're not gonna take accountability for putting you in that situation.
Yeah, and I see here there's a lot in the comments going on. Michael P said, yes, that's what I meant. Plenty from the 106 fled to the 116 from the incompetent leadership in the 106. And that's what it appears to be. From all accounts, other than this one guy that probably is either, if it's not Van Tol himself, it's one of his cronies or Crumbs crew. No one has said a good thing about him, including the cops that work there. No one. And if I'm Real Mildy 5D channel who posted this and sent me this thing about what happened over the weekend, if you have an internal affairs log number, whatever that is, you need to post that publicly, because the only way of holding these people accountable is to actually show publicly that this is what happened. Internal affairs. If you don't do this, they're going to sweep it under the rug, or they're going to blame Officer Joe, because that is the internal affairs way. Or as Eric Dim best coined it, selective affairs. That's how they do things now. You cannot touch an executive. Executives are off limits. They could do absolutely anything unless they're not part of the crew. because you saw one of them was accused of sexual harassment, and they threw him to the wolves because he wasn't part of the crew. If he was part of the crew, no one would have known anything. They would have said it's all the cops' fault, it's all lies, all of that. Eric Adams' best line is disgruntled employees. He's got a ton of them. They're all disgruntled, but they all have evidence and facts, but they're all disgruntled. That's Eric Adams and the Crumbs crew. So I think we're going to follow. We're going to keep an eye on this. Obviously, I don't know how the hell this guy's getting promoted. But again, in the NYPD right now, incompetence gets rewarded. That's just the name of the game here. So I wanted to shift into we're talking about the Crumbs crew. So over the weekend, we learned, first of all, we're going to backtrack. A courageous captain in the NYPD, her name is Gabby Walls. She had a bombshell lawsuit she dropped on the NYPD. Why? Because she was being sexually harassed by that monster, Jeffrey Madry, who's got a slew of people that he's done this to, apparently. And Tim Pearson, Scott Henderson, the deputy chief that's getting a walkout every day for sexually harassing her, and Kaz Daughtry, who is making videos nonstop online in self-promotion on taxpayer dime. So this lawsuit she filed, you know, there's things that happened with Tim Pearson that he tried to get her in a car, all kinds of crazy stuff. And Tim Pearson, the former deputy mayor of the deputy mayor of public safety, he's in so many lawsuits and has so many allegations that I've lost count. I mean, the guy is a horrible, horrible man. And on the screen here, you see the Kaz Daughtry. Now he said something about Sydney Sweeney's jeans, and it's a picture of him in jeans. I don't know what this guy's doing. This is all taxpayer money, by the way. I know Marlon's laughing. Taxpayer money is being used to propagate this guy as some kind of social media star. I don't know. He's clearly trying to do something because by December 31st, you won't have a job. So with all of that going on, there was this whole thing that came out in Politico and in the Daily News that there's an IEB log in regards to Timothy Pearson. Apparently, there was a rape allegation thrown on him. Okay, in 2012, this incident happened, and they did call internal affairs, right? It says right here, a newly submitted exhibit in one of those cases contains an internal NYPD report summarizing a rape allegation made against Pearson roughly a decade before he joined the Adams administration. So he's been alleged to have raped someone. And of course, there was if you read this and it's in the exhibits, the NYPD, the internal affairs exhibits on the lawsuit or this internal document that the woman was involved with Tim Pearson, and apparently she broke his car windows. So they were in some kind of relationship, but at the same time, then everything went south. So it also involved Chief Harrison, Rodney Harrison at that time was a chief of detectives. I thought he was a chief of internal affairs. I mixed it up. He was a chief of detectives and the then chief of department who became his boss, Phil Banks. Now, the internal affairs thing kind of timed itself out because they ended up leaving the job. And he left the job, Tim Pearson, because it says here, as part of the internal probe, which exonerated both officials, this is in Politico, by the way, an NYPD investigator interviewed the Nassau County detective who had handled the original rape allegation and deemed it unfounded. The Nassau County detective told the NYPD that the allegation appeared to stem from relationship strife. So while this is all going on, right, it seems that the bigger problem here is how Nassau County handled this, number one, because this victim is adamant to this day that she was raped by Tim Pearson. On top of this, with this allegation, now that you know, because this comes from the Ludeman, Sergeant Ludeman lawsuit, Marlon, that entire thing that occurred, how do you hire this man knowing the positions? And the minute you hear one inkling that a female is complaining about Tim Pearson, How do you not terminate him or just, end his deputy mayorship when you know this guy's history? Banks, his boss, couldn't say I don't know. He was the chief of department. He saw this the complaint. Eric Adams knows everything because he got him a job with the race casino as the head of security right after this happened. These two guys cannot say, I don't know what Tim Pearson's doing when they clearly know about this report and the NYPD. So I don't know what you got to say about that. I find this very disturbing that they still hired him. And then the allegations started coming through, the reports, the rumors, and they still kept him employed. They still kept him employed.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot more that we don't know because, Tim Pearson was a deputy inspector for close to like 10 years, Mm-hmm. So what the question is, why was he never promoted to chief, And it's been alluded to that he had on the job allegations that kind of shelved his career. But I've yet to come across it. But this guy clearly has issues, Now it's important to note that this rape case, that the Nassau County Special Victims closed the case out as I think unfounded. But you have to read between the lines about the information that's in there, Like if you told me Tim Pearson was forceful, at least forceful, okay, I would take this. I'm going to take it seriously because we know this guy's reputation, okay? And for those of you who aren't as familiar with it as we are, Sergeant Ludman was in a unit attached to Tim Pearson. Okay, Tim Pearson had one of these weird advisory roles with the city under Eric Adams, where his role is very much undefined, kind of like what Kaz is now.
It's like vague. Yeah, it's vague.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know what his role is. It's just a deputy mayor or deputy mayor.
Yeah, I don't even think he had a deputy mayor position. I think it was just senior advisor. But the thing is, so Sergeant Ludman was in that unit, and her boss was Chief Maramara, and Sergeant Ludman alleges that Pearson would make sexual advances towards her, and he would make these suggestive comments and touch her inappropriately, and that he when she rejected his advances, he basically stonewalled her career and said that what's she gonna do for him, and then he basically said that she can become his driver, and as we've talked about on the show, when supervisors pick that driver, female driver, it's usually, in most instances, okay, it's usually there's an agenda at play here, okay. And in addition to that, in Captain Gabby Wall's lawsuit, it's she talks about Tim Pearson's advances in the car, okay. So
proposition.
Yeah. So this guy has a history of being forceful, and of course we know about the incident where he tried to force his way into the homeland, the shelter, the migrant shelter.
Okay? Yes, where's my crumbs?
Yeah. So this is a guy who's a history of being aggressive, and he thinks, he only thinks about Tim Pearson. That's the only one who matters to him.
He's unbelievable. And here, Special Hagen said Pearson is an animal, and it's no wonder how someone hasn't stood up to him. As long as the city continues to pay for his defense, justice will continue to be denied. And she continues. Pearson was just a senior advisor to the mayor. He wouldn't have gotten past the vetting process to be a deputy mayor. He still got paid the equivalent of a deputy mayor. And that's true. Here's the infamous line that he said right here, and it says it in the article. One of the plaintiffs alleged in a court filing that he bragged about seeking kickbacks from migrant contracts, referring to him as crumbs. That's where it comes. Where are my crumbs? He told NYPD Lieutenant George Wang and others. This is the way he talks. And, it's funny, though, in this article, so the Daily News covered this also, which is more details than it was in Politico. And it said that Rodney Harrison, who is in Internal Affairs, he confirmed all of this. And he was then named the Staten Island Borough Deputy Chief after when this complaint came in 2015. So he said, I do remember her saying that Pearson did force himself on her in some form or fashion. He says, I don't recall the act that was committed. There was definitely a part that she shared, that there was a relationship with him, and it turned to a point where she wanted to file a complaint. But Nassau County, which seems to be the problem here, because it said Nassau County didn't take her complaint serious. And now this has been brought up in the Ludeman litigation, which also in part can be brought up in the Gabby Walls case, because John Skoll is representing both of them. And this is just disgusting that they didn't, I don't understand, because I'm reading this. She disputes the summary. This is the victim, I think. She disputes the summary by the Nassau Detective and Internal Affairs case. She says he told her, the Nassau DA Kathleen Rice at the time, would not take the case since she did not immediately obtain a rape kit from the hospital. So this is a complete screw up on Nassau County for not taking this seriously and not doing this. And this victim continues in this. None of this stuff is my story. This is Pearson's side of the story. She says the Nassau sex crime detective, said he would reach out to Pearson's lawyer. When he called me back, he said there's nothing I could do. And there's a complaint number with Nassau County Special Victims. The police didn't want to comment on it there. And it's just, and she wrote in there, I was date raped by the respondent, Tim Pearson. I filed a complaint in Nassau County, December 20th, 2013. I did not report it right away because I was afraid. Pearson used his NYPD muscle to intimidate me. And that's the MO of the Crumbs crew. That is it in a nutshell. And just to go backwards with this, Gabby Walls has a suit. Not only Tim Pearson's involved, but so is Deputy Chief Scott Henderson, which we could go on and on about this guy. This man right now is having another community walk-off, whatever it is, send-off. He had a silent one from the 79th precinct, which they, I guess, went against the soccer mom. The soccer mom said, you can't do it. They did it anyway. He keeps getting these community send-offs, but he's getting it for what? Sexually harassing Gabby Walls. Because no one in that community, no one in the police department has Gabby Walls back. Yet she's an executive with an unparalleled record. Her record is almost perfect, okay? And she's a captain. She still has no command 3 years later, Marlon. She's been ostracized. She's been put through the ringer for this stuff. And, I mean, Williamsburg News, making a big deal. Brooklyn North. This is when he was in Brooklyn North. Yeah, Scott Henderson. I mean, they're making this guy out. Nobody wants to touch this with a 10-foot pole. That he clearly chased Gabby Walls around. Yet, don't discuss that. And Marlon, we can't go in and Patrick Gordon with his BS. Oh, we don't promote enough black executives. What about Gabby Walls? You're not talking about her, apparently. She doesn't matter because she's not part of the Crumbs crew. You got to be part of that crew.
Yeah. You see, you have to wonder why Pearson only had that senior advisor role. They knew this guy has enough black marks on his record that he would be a bad look if you appoint him to an official position. And there's also allegations that Resorts World, the casino in Queens, that they kicked him out because of sexual improprieties there. So, and also there's an allegation around 2014 from a pastor in Queens that he again kind of forced himself on her. So this guy has enough black marks on his record that the Adams and his people knew that he would be a bad look if you give him an official position. But yet you didn't give him that title on paper, but you still give it to him, in terms of outsized influence that he had on the department. And look what we got. Look what we got as a result. So,
he's the gift that keeps giving, Marlon. These so many lawsuits, and this is why I say in the end, why this is going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not all the sexual harassment, which is a lot. There's a lot. I mean, it's like a record number. It's the administration as a whole. Because remember, you also have the hair test thing. Remember, a lot of people got terminated for that. That could be a class action lawsuit. It's going to cost millions to defend and even more in settlements. Then you have this whole candidate assessment thing. That also could become people that were supposed to get on the job, didn't get the job. They were told they weren't good enough, but yet they still got the job, or they were fired because they were told they can't get on, but someone else that was unqualified got on. That is hundreds of millions of dollars total in 2 class action lawsuits right there when you add it on with all this other stuff. This guy is like, he's leaving a legacy of destruction. But to cap this all off over the weekend, there was another sexual harassment suit. And it's funny. It's funny if it wasn't said right here, right? So NYPD detective says partner sexually harassed and she was stripped of a gun and badge when she reported it. And what's crazy is, we're going to get into this here. So the NYPD officer was sexually assaulted by her mentor, then sent to a shrink by her bosses when she spoke out, she claims in a lawsuit. Brooklyn detective Jasmine Walls. Remember that last name. We just were discussing it. So just so you know, she's Gabby's daughter. Says she endured over a year harassment or abuse from her partner. Detective Carlos Zambrano allegedly groped her, sent text saying he was horny, and flashed explicit photos, according to court papers filed July 24th in Manhattan Supreme Court. When she alerted the boss of the behavior, Walls told the Post she was smeared with rumors, referred to NYPD psychological services, and stripped of her gun, shield, and ID. I just thought I would be a victim like this, Walls said. I expect that from someone on the streets, not someone in blue. Before I go on, Marlon, what is your initial thoughts on that? Because it sounds like how many other people? Smeared, destroyed, they go after you, psychological services. Where have we seen this before, Marlon?
Wow. So she's Captain Wall's daughter?
Yes.
Wow. So you kind of see why they didn't do anything about the allegations that she made in Brooklyn North.
Yeah, this is what I'm seeing. I see that the job itself is targeting her because of family. It's the same thing they did to Epps and her nephew. That's how I see this, right? Without even looking more into this, because look at the extent of what they're doing to her.
Yeah. You see, we talked about it before. You know, there were comments in the chat yesterday about that what's her role in all of this, and the thing we always say is that if the department had a transparent discipline process and actually did the job as they're supposed to do, right, then the process would play out and it would be a fairer process to do, but what happens is the job doesn't have transparency, and then you retaliate against people like that, and it's like you make things even worse. Okay, if the job had a transparent disciplinary process instead of the mess that it does right now, then it would clear things up. Okay, and it would give us a clear indication of who, of whether which allegations that we should take seriously. Okay, so for those of you saying that whatever her role is, I mean, you have to look at what's happened over the last couple of years to all victims. Okay, and even after all of that has happened, has there been a transparent process? Has the department learned from those past mistakes and said, okay, all right, you know what? We're gonna stop this nonsense, this cronyism. We're gonna stop punishing guys for this and not punishing others for this because they know people. No, it hasn't. So
no, and this continues. This gets even more disturbing. The alleged harassment began in November 2022 when Walls, a cop at the time, was assigned to Brooklyn's 90th precinct in Williamsburg while on the NYPD's 18th month detective track, the lawsuit says. It's Brooklyn North, by the way. Remember that, because who's in charge? Henderson. Henderson's the chief there. He was supposed to technically be my mentor, Wall said of Zambrano. As he got to know me, it started progressing. You never knew what you were going to get. What began with lewd comments turned into groping, sexually explicit messages, and threats. She'd be labeled a rat if she told anyone, the lawsuit alleges. Where we heard that before, Marlon? You're a rat. You're a rat. It's always a rat. Just be so. For people who know it, a rat is essentially what? If you mention anything about corruption or try to say, you know, this is going, you're a rat. So you're supposed to let it fester, be a victim. If you end up dead, you know, someone should have said something. That'll be what Joe Kopp says, by the way. I just go a little bit more here. If in one revolting instance in January 2023, Zambrano allegedly grabbed her by the bun and yanked her head towards his crotch in a stairwell to simulate oral sex, she told the Post. You know who else did that? There's all kinds of, Tim Pearson was doing that in 1PP. All kinds of rumors of things he was doing in 1PP with females. It's just, this is disgusting. I got a little bit more before I did. I was just so shocked, Wall said, for him to grab me by the head. How could somebody in the police department really do that? She stayed silent, determined to get a detective shield, she told the Post. But after a precinct holiday party in December 2023, aren't those always a beauty? Where Zambrano allegedly rubbed his penis against her leg in public, Walls reported the abuse to a Detective Endowment Association delegate and welfare officer, the lawsuit states. The union rep asked if she could still work with men and said Zambrano would apologize, the suit claims. Right there, I mean, there's a little bit more. But Marlon, I got to get your take because you have your own issues. These guys clearly didn't have your back. What do you have to say about that part?
Yeah, why didn't they move to get her out of there and get her into maybe a Queen's command, maybe you know, someplace away from there? I just don't understand like why they let these incidents get out of control. You know, deal with it when it first pops up so that it doesn't get to this point. Either somebody separates. I'm sorry, but somebody should have told Zambrano, like, dude, you gotta cut it out, okay? Even if it didn't get towards a touching, you know, the sexual, some of the language that I hear from a lot of the old guys, they need to understand that even if you're not one of these deviants like Marjorie, okay, you got to be careful with what you're saying. Okay, this isn't the old days. Okay, you have to be mindful of what you're saying. Okay, and I'm not saying, I'm not getting on I'm not talking all that woke nonsense. Okay, I'm just saying you have to. You're not in a frat house. Okay, so that frat behavior isn't going to work. You're in a professional environment where you have to be professional. Okay, so that I don't understand why somebody didn't nip this in the bud when they first heard of that unprofessionalism. Because again, if you let it spiral out of control, not only are you getting scrutiny, not only is her you know, she's being made to feel uncomfortable in the situation, but you're bringing on extra scrutiny into your unit. Okay, do you really want that? Okay, so supervisors have to nip that stuff in the bud. You know, I talked to these guys before get that frat atmosphere out of here. You know,
it's the NYPD, especially still under the soccer mom Jessica Tisch, is a frat house. It's a frat house which is still corrupt, and corruption runs amok, and there's nothing being done because Scott Henderson's still there. Madry wasn't suspended or modified. Neither was Henderson. Neither is this guy Van Tull. You can keep going on and on. You can do whatever you want as long as you're friends with the right people. You're part of Crumb's crew or you're part of the Conso Frito crew. You're okay. Nothing goes wrong. But if you're some low totem pole cop or detective, crush you. That's what they're going to do. They've been doing this for a while, but under this administration, it's got a big spotlight. So I'm going to continue as there's more, and you're going to get even more angrier. DEA lawyer James Moschella said the officer wasn't represented by the DEA when she informed the delegate of the allegations. Nevertheless, let me be clear. The DEA takes any report of this type by any officer, regardless of rank, with the utmost seriousness, but must respect the wishes of the officer concerned if she did not want it reported to the NYPD at the time, Moschella said. Several supervisors also allegedly knew about Zambrano's behavior but failed to intervene, according to the suit. From that point on, Wall says she was ostracized. She was labeled problematic, a log dropper, and rat, denied overtime and iced out by coworkers, all while her delegate allegedly spread rumors and told others Walls had filed an EO complaint, Walls told the Post. Walls transferred to Brooklyn's 81st Precinct in Bedford-Stuyvesant and Stuyvesant Heights in April 2024, but said the gossip followed her as the delegate allegedly continued the smear campaign for over a year, the lawsuit says. To escape the hostile environment, Walls asked to transfer to patrol in July 2025, but she said she was forced to withdraw the request under pressure. Then Captain Robert Corrado, one of her supervisors, labeled her indecisive and sent her to psych services where she was stripped of her gun, shield, and ID, according to the lawsuit. They try to discredit me and humiliate me. There's a little more, but what do you have to say about that, Molly? That's the smear campaign that follows from the delegate, the DA delegate. This is your union. This was your union, Molly. You know all about how they do this stuff. They were smearing her all the way into the new command.
Yeah, they like we talk about on the show all the time. The unions are useless. Okay. Now I know firsthand this job retaliates on you because I'd like to mention that Deputy Chief Surgeon Kufo again called Chief Galati, and when I questioned the approval of the medical experiment, he went back to Galati and tried to get me like transferred or basically try to get me reprimanded for discourtesy, which was a lie. Okay. And the union knew all about it. Did they do anything about it? I expected the union were going to at least make a call. Paul DiGiacomo was going to make a call to Kufa and tell him, if you better cut the nonsense out. I expected at least that. I would have been fine with that. Okay. But you don't get any of that. So now let's say if I had dropped a log to IAB, right? Then I'd have been a rat, right? You label us a rat, but you don't do anything when we bring up the complaint. Okay. So in this example, they labeled her a rat and a log dropper. Okay. Did you do anything when she first reported the problem? What did you do about it? Because if you did something about it, then would she have been forced to go that route? Probably not. Probably not. I look at her record and she was a pretty active cop. Okay. So we're not talking about a house mouse here. Okay. But you don't do anything. And then when these cops have to take it on their own to do something, then you label them a rat and then you retaliate against them. So it's like you're wrong for having reported the unprofessionalism and the nonsense. It's completely absurd, Sal.
I pointed this out over and over again, and I don't care what people say. This whole log dropping and what do you suppose? What this is how the procedure is. This is what you have. What's disgusting is those people that are supposed to be representing you, your delegate, the union. Listen, the unions, in my opinion, are useless. I'd be identified as a union buster. You want to know why? Who do they really help? Their inner circle, their friends, their family. You want a low totem pole, look what they're doing to her, smearing her, because she's not part of the in crowd. That's what a union does. That's the majority of them. And then they'll tell you to vote for people that go against everything you, the union member, values. okay, when they start endorsing people like Eric Adams, they're going against your values because he's done nothing but hurt the police department, but apparently not the head of the DA. He thinks opposite. So there's more to this, a little bit more. Walls was cleared the same day by a department psychologist. He said, Zambrano, who's married, remains on the job. He gets to work on his cases like nothing happened, she said. Meanwhile, my career is tarnished because of his actions. Her attorney, John Scola, said the NYPD protects sexual predators and punishes the women who dare to speak up. This case shines more light on a broken system of harassment, retaliation, and institutional failure, one that will only change because of brave women like Detective Walls. Walls is seeking unspecified damages. The NYPD declined to comment on ongoing litigation. Zambrano and Corrado could not be reached for comment. So, Marlon, what do you have to say with all this? Is another, I guess it's another spoke in the wheel. And my main concern here is that the NYPD, their reaction to this first is they smear, you know this because you were in the DA, you know how these delegates are, all these unions, all the delegates are the same. They smeared her. They brought her to her command. Of course, she was in Brooklyn North, which that falls under a chief that has it out for her mom. So it's a same scenario like Epps. And it's almost like a mirror. You come out against the department and we're going to crush you and any of your offspring if you come after us. That's one avenue of this. The other half is, take her to psych services and do all this crazy stuff. I mean, what are we talking about here? Because this is why people don't want this job, Marlon. Like this is clearly it.
You know, you really have to wonder with this atmosphere, how many women actually just remain silent on the job, just for the sake of their careers, Now, we talked about this on Monday that it'd be naive to think this just started happening like recently, Oh,
yeah.
But I seriously have to wonder, like, just how many women on the job just remain quiet because, you talk, I mean, where you gonna go? The unions aren't working for you. You report this and they're gonna try to label you as a rat, a log dropper, or discourteous and stonewall your career. So it really, I tend to take a measured response to a lot of these things. And a couple of years ago, remember we had this thing where the progressives were like, believe all women, and in a lot of those cases, the men were wrong. Okay, those allegations were bogus. So I tend to take a measured response to a lot of these things. But when you see this keep happening in the NYPD, you really have to start wondering, how many women are silent about this, and it's like these guys are like, I just don't understand how the job doesn't see that this is a long-term problem for them, especially if you're looking to recruit the best women for the job. Okay, you're not going to get the best women because they see this and you think they want to come and some chief is preying on them, trying to get them in bed. I mean, I don't understand how the job doesn't see this as a major issue, especially when they love to spout all the progressive nonsense that they do.
And I'd like to point out that the yet to be dropped lawsuit from Quatisha Epps, the former lieutenant in the NYPD, will probably blow the doors off for everything else that we've cited here today and anything previously. That is going to be the mother of all lawsuits. And I know the feds were supposedly involved, but of course we can't touch Eric Adams, right? Because, he's the MAGA candidate for mayor at 7% in the polls. But Special Hagen said something here earlier. Said Adams does not care about violence against women. His personal security, David Johnson, was arrested for beating up his girlfriend, piercing through the woman by the neck at the migrant shelter, which I remember him doing. This guy tells you he believes women, he's for women. Eric Adams' administration is anything but that. And their actions and their behavior say something different than what they actually do. Because it can't be everyone's a disgruntled employee, everybody's a liar, everyone's a rat. Everybody, when you start looking and saying, I'm the problem, because clearly there's a ton of Michigas around me, and I don't know. I'm blaming everyone else but me and the decisions I make. Because Eric Adams he's never been a manager. He's a horrible manager. He doesn't know how to manage anything. He couldn't manage a lemonade stand, let alone the police department or the city, which you've seen is in complete turmoil because of him.
Okay. Yes, sir. If you're a good manager, why, and these incidents keep popping up in these guys' histories, Madry's history, why would you continue to put them in an atmosphere where they're going to be around women officers, and what's going to happen again? Why would you keep doing that? Yeah.
I'm speechless, and Special Hagen again, she said this clique is quick to try to deem you as having mental issues, yet they all are violent. They stalk people and they will do anything to destroy people, want nothing to do with their corruption. This is a fact. For me, it's a fact because that's all I've ever seen with these people. Nighthawk says Adams and all his friends are losers and lowlifes. It's like it's a pattern here. It's very disturbing. Shout out Seth Lowe. Shout out to you. $10 to the podcast. I'll be having some espresso on you later. He says someone needs to do an investigation on the arbiters and PBA lawyers. I know they are involved in these wrongfully termination cases. The truth shall be revealed. Listen, I think you're right. These lawyers, I've always had a feeling there's something going on there, especially with the way you just saw this latest case with Detective Walls. And I saw somebody say, I don't know, 6 years on, she got a look. Some people, you make a lot of arrests, you get up there. You just the way of the name. I mean, does anybody not agree? I mean, look at Kaz Daughtry. There's a guy that rocket fuel every couple of months. 3rd grade, 2nd grade, 1st grade commissioner. I mean,
well, even
this doesn't earn it, right?
Yeah, I mean, Sal, if to that question, if you're in the DEA, right, you just look at your own union. I mean, your union is represented by a subsidiary of Vito Pita, okay, and Vito Pita is one of Eric Adams' attorneys, okay, and I haven't checked on it recently, but I can tell you for a fact that during the scamdemic and when Adams was firing me, okay, the same union lawyer was again one of the subsidiaries of Eric Adams' own lawyer. So that's a major conflict of interest, and it's still going on. Okay, so
these guys. I mean, here, look, that's Kaz Daughtry. You have a problem with Detective Walls, who worked, by the way. She's in the precinct. She was working, making arrests. Kaz Daughtry, what arrest was he making? What was he doing other than driving Madry around and sexually harassing people with him? Well, what did he do? Trust me. To hear that kind of stuff gets me upset. She worked. She has a lot of arrests on the record. She worked to get where she's at. But she doesn't deserve to be treated this way because someone, the borough chief, wants to harass her mom. That's how this all started. If you haven't seen the way the timeline works, it all started all around the same time under this Crumbs crew. They're disgusting human beings. And yet Scott Henderson's going to get another walkout for sexually harassing Gabby Walls. That's what NYPD rewards bad behavior, not good ones. Not in this administration anyway. I'm looking at the comments here. Woon said, good afternoon to Marlon and Sal, two of the best fighters for the Voices Behind the Blue. Keep up the good fight. Love you guys. Right back at you. We're trying our best to, spotlight this stuff. Doreen McCormack said, the old sent to psych services. She is crazy. She's a dangerous self for other scumbag maneuver. It is a scumbag maneuver to try to send someone to psych services. It's ridiculous. Yeah. I don't know how do you even contemplate sending her to psych services because she's complaining about something going on that there's evidence of it where other people were saying, hey, listen, don't be doing that. You work in the same squad. I mean, that's common sense. It's, Nighthawk says there's no accountability as of yet in the NYPD at no level whatsoever. That's why it keeps happening to this day and will continue if no one gets punished for this illicit behavior. Joel Ramirez, I've been saying this for a while. The union's corrupted. He's right. I mean, you standing there, you're sitting there, Marlon, you're a victim of the union. They didn't do anything for you. And to this day, That's, I mean, where were they for Detective Walls?
Yeah. Someone with 192 arrests in her career, and that's I give the benefit of the doubt, and I always give respect to cops who are actually doing their jobs, and mind you, that's a lot more arrests under her belt than half of these losers like
Audrey?
yeah. Well, no, Kaz has a lot, but
Oh,
it's
yeah, but you know
a
how
lot of
he
the
got
other losers with their 12 arrests, like Shepard. She has a lot more than that.
Kaz Daughtry's arrests are under asterisk, and that I believe there's a lot of them that would just hand it to him, meaning he didn't do anything. They just went out and got it for him. So there's a lot of rumors about that with that guy because he was driving Madry all the time. Where's he getting arrests? Yeah. I don't know where he got 300 arrests.
Even if they weren't, Sal, he should have 500 with the access he did. Okay,
easy.
If I had his access, I would have like close to 1,000 right now. But we had to like claw and scratch for a car, and then you get a body with like a car that you got a voucher. You're there for 17 hours, and the sergeant's telling you get out, hurry up, get off for overtime, and so he had the lay of the land for himself. Okay, nobody was gonna tell him you can't do that, Kaz. You can't get a car, Kaz. So you should have like 500 collars.
He easily should have. I like this comment by Pat Donahue because he's in the same boat. He's trying to tell everyone what we've been saying here. You can be a union official and a victim of the union. I was one. Hope forbid you ask uncomfortable questions and exhibit integrity, become the piñata for the Mean Girls group text, which is what happened to Detective Walls. And I'm just saying, you're a union member, right? You would think the union would have her back. They would at least walk over to this guy and say, listen to me. There's a lot of rumors here. I would just cut it out, like you said. Yet it continued and got worse. And it probably got worse with his witnesses. But, you can't hold the days of saying we're going to handle this in-house, be quiet, don't worry about it. It doesn't work anymore because it's so explosive in 2025, how things work now. You can't. You got to handle it. You got to be like, all right, enough. Say what you got to say and put two people, transfer them, whatever it is. You cannot handle this in-house for the very reasons of what you just saw with this lawsuit. But again, I think there's more overtures because the way the department's handling it, okay, sounds more of they taking it out on her because of first her mom and all that going on in that Brooklyn North. Because remember, Henderson, Daughtry, and Madry were chasing her mom around like a hyena. Like literally, she had to go hide. Then she works in that borough. It's very easy for them to manipulate things and make things hard, whatever it is they do. And now when she makes an allegation, oh, what are you talking about? Wait a minute. You're whose daughter? And they come out and crush you, which is what they did. Psych services? Come on. Psych services get me. So that's what I mean when they tell you don't be a rat. So they're saying you make a complaint, we're going to send you to psych services. So be a victim or go along with the corruption. That's basically what the alternative is. Go along with the corruption or you're going to psych services. I mean, Marlon, that sounds crazy, but not too far off of what we've been saying here on the Finest Unfiltered Network. You're muted. Muted again.
Sorry. Remember the quote that Kaz repeats. It's either you're at the table eating with them or you're on the menu. So that's when Kaz said that has always stuck in my head because that's their mentality. You're either with us or you're at lunch. And there is ways that you can handle this in-house. Okay. You call everybody. Now I was never a supervisor, but I had some great bosses, and they let you know when they're the boss, and most times they let you be a cop, and there are times when you got to be the boss. Otherwise, just think of how it is being a cop. Do you want more scrutiny from all these nonsense units at 1PP, the inspections to come or investigations to come scrutinizing you for you got out of a meal 5 minutes longer? Okay.
Yeah.
Nonsense. Okay. You don't. So that's why a boss you can call everybody in the office and set the table for how you know what's acceptable and what's not, and you let guys know. Listen, if you keep doing this nonsense, you're just going to bring eyes into your unit, and then you're not going to have the room to breathe in here that you like being in this unit for. Okay, and that's one of the things. When I went to Intel, I had the inspector who brought me in there. He told me that he was like, listen, I'm bringing you to Intel, but understand you have a lot of freedom at Intel. Okay, but that freedom comes with responsibility, you know. And the minute you screw up, you're out, because you're bringing more. You're going to ruin it for everybody else. This freedom, and so you can set the table. And I think it's because we have weak leadership that refuse to do just that, is why this continues.
I think this is some of the worst leadership you're ever going to see. This is an administration that the wheels have completely fallen off the car. This car is like headed straight for straight for the wall, the clown car. I don't, what else could happen? Stay tuned, because I think you'll have more during the week. Before I let you go, Marlon, I wanted to mention New York Post over the weekend decides to write this article about Winston Faison, who we've gone at great lengths about, and I could tell you stories about that guy, but he's the CEO of aviation. He's under federal investigation, which you heard here first. But Marlon, how is that an exclusive when literally about a month or so ago, you were the very first to mention anything about this? Then it was John McCarry. Then it was Rob Lukash. And then it was myself. And then the New York Post wrote an article. Yet they're killing everything is an exclusive.
Well, actually, Sal, John was the first one on that one. And then Inspector Lukash. I was actually on Henderson's. His circus over there is what I reported on first. But I actually had heard things about Faison months ago, but I didn't know it was this bad over there. But there, a lot of the guys are not happy with what he was doing, and he brought a level of unprofessionalism to that unit. And now keep in mind, right? Aviation is one of those units where you have to be very skilled, and you have to be very professional at what you're doing, because you're operating very expensive equipment and you're flying over the city. Okay, so if you're not doing your job, not only are you going to jeopardize the lives of the crew, the lives of like anybody who happens to fly in an NYPD helicopter or plane, but also people who live in the city. So you have to be professional there, and you have to. It goes beyond rank in aviation, okay? Because of how they operate, and because of the FAA, and it's not just like being in a precinct. So when you take your I'm the CEO I'm the CEO here, I can do whatever I want, and you bring that mentality to aviation, it's going to be a problem, because again, pilots who have years of experience, more than you do, you're going to tell that guy you know more than he does, even though he's the guy who has more experience, or the mechanic who does this every day. It's different, and he took a mentality to aviation that clearly we're seeing the poor byproduct of. And I'm happy that we, as a collective, reported that and did our part to bring back professionalism back to that unit. And I hope the guy that replaces him now, understands that this is aviation is much bigger than you can't take that precinct mentality and bring it over there. You got to be professional, and you got to let these guys do your job, and you can't just do whatever you want. Okay.
I agree with you. I think we did great even bringing this up. And I'm not, not hating on the New York Post. I'm just saying, can you just at least say, hey, John, Marlon, Rob, and even for myself, just say, hey, they came up, they had this all scooped out, and then here you come like the wolf at the end. Oh yeah, thanks for that carcass. We're trying to do what's best, not only for the public and the taxpayers in New York City, but the men and women in the police department, rank and file, that have to be subjected to this nonsense. because there was never a voice from the outside that was so effective with this before we came along. You had people here and there, but now it's like right now we have a spotlight on areas where there are cops right now that are struggling. When you think about when a cop, you hear about all the suicides and stuff. No one ever wonders why, ask questions, but we could tell you we wore that uniform. You're not allowed to speak out. And if you do, you'll have psych services called on you. Or, they label you a rat. These are the things that weigh on you. So when you see things happen, you go, oh, why would that happen? And you go, well, I know why, because I remember when I was on that job. And that's basically what we are. Yeah, I like to talk about politics and stuff too, but it's, you're always going to have that soft spot for that cop in uniform. More so the cop or sergeant lieutenant than a commissioner who clearly is out of touch with things, But that's what we do here. So at least say, we're pointing and putting a spotlight on something. At least just say, hey, throw us a bone and say, hey, the Finest Unfiltered uncovered this whole thing and they're doing a great job doing it. Said the Post wants to take a lap around the block. I get it. It's like the big dog wants to knock around the medium one, I guess. You got Ron Layson said, so you're saying that he isn't allowed to take a helicopter ride to Long Island where his plane is parked? Is that like personal use of a Category 1 car?
Yeah, Category 1 helicopter.
Yeah, the Category 1 helicopter.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if that trend had started over there?
Oh, but it's getting worse. There's going to be more coming out about that. There's all kinds of. That is going to be something that continues to roll. Because remember, there were Department of Internal Investigations like GO-15s. That he basically was telling them what to say or do, apparently. That you can't do that. And you can't do that if the feds come around. Because now you get into perjury. This is like dangerous territory. But he's part of Crumbs. Crumbs just thinks they can do whatever they want. Because you know what? Eric will go, President Trump, and that's it. That's what this feels like to us. No one's ever held accountable, including him, because he's got the real estate behind him.
Yeah.
Real estate.
Yeah.
The real estate's behind him.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you have any final thoughts, Marlon, before I let you head out. I know you've been here for a while and you got things to do.
Yeah, no. Just thanks for having me on again. I issued a challenge to everyone on Monday, and I said this for you guys on patrol. If you're that sector guy who you now have to cover 4 sectors, okay? Is that fair to you? No, it's not. Okay. We keep talking about this. All the problems in the NYPD are because they're understaffed. And my challenge was get an anonymous account, go take some pictures of that roll call. Okay. You got 3 cars for the night on roll call. That's unacceptable. Okay. Get an anonymous account, take a picture, send it to your community boards, send it to us. Okay. Because this we need to put pressure on the city to actually get the cops back. And even if you're going to tell me that, yeah, we have a hiring crisis, okay. Well, maybe the job should make it better so that guys aren't ready to run out the door as soon as they hit 20 years. Because I guarantee you, most guys would stay till at least 25 years if given a chance. I had no intention of leaving at 20, okay? I planned to do at least 30, and then after that was it for me. I wasn't going to work again. So most guys are going to do at least 25 years if you make the job pleasant, but you don't care about that. So, and you have a hiring problem on top of it. So we got to put pressure on them. And we live in an age where we have a voice now with social media. So it's time for some of you to use it. So thanks again for having me on, Sal.
Yeah, don't use it as cat's dodgy. Don't use it like that guy.
Yeah,
that's always. Thanks for coming on, Marlon. Great talking to you as usual, pointing out all the facts and steering people the right way. Yeah, look, Pat Downey says, I got caught at New Year's Eve detail wearing an unauthorized Under Armour turtleneck due to freezing temperatures. I told inspectors I was randomly selected by equipment section to try out the UA turtleneck. I remember those days, Pat. They did say things about the turtleneck if you wore one that didn't say NYPD. This was this was in a different time period. But yes, they would come over to you. So even if you're not joking, that actually did happen. There were cops. I remember seeing that. So you couldn't wear a different turtleneck, which is crazy. But now we go to everyone's favorite segment on the show, the producer's take. Mr. Yankee fan, Jack, the Yankee fan. Jack, I don't know what you have to say for yourself. I just have to tell you, I was there at Lone Depot Park when the Marlins 2-0. We were beating the Yankees. The game was sold out. There was at least 15, 20,000 people there that were Yankee fans. Plenty of them looked like they may have been from Sobro Garden, if you know what I mean. And they would get excited for the wrong thing, because the game started off with the Yankees trying to score a run and got thrown out at home, and you knew it was going to be a bad day. So it was nice to see the Marlins sweep the Yankees. I know they lost last night, but now they're 500. So it's taken on the evil empire, and we crushed them, because the Marlins are my adopted team now. But it was a great atmosphere. First time I've been there where it's actually sold out. It was close another time when I was there with the Mets, but I knew this was going to be a full house. The Yankees, whatever they did wasn't working, and now I look like the Mets are collapsing because they're under 500 since, I think, May or June, and maybe the Marlins have a chance. I don't know, maybe. I'm just saying. But it was great to see the Yankees lose. I'm not a Yankee fan. I like people from the Bronx. I just don't like the Bronx Bombers. I think they represent everything that's wrong in sports. And good riddance. I hope they enjoy this week.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think if the Yankee season ends up imploding the way we think it will, and more on the Mets in a second because they're not exactly knocking it out of the park either, but if the Yankees end up struggling the way we think they do, this weekend will have been affectionately known as Mayhem in Miami. All three bullpen pieces they acquired were horrible on Friday night. They scored no runs on Saturday. Jazz Chisholm, the former fan favorite of Miami Marlins fans, is like dancing off second base, and then Aaron Boone yells at Travis Chapman, the first base coach, in the dugout. I mean, what a disastrous situation that was. Devin Williams, who was one of the culprits who blew the game on Friday night, gives up blows the game yesterday to Texas.
They went up to 6 runs, Jack. They were up 6 runs. And
it was like, how do you blow a 6-run lead to the Marlins? And I was at a game in Tampa a couple months ago where they blew a 4-run lead in the 9th inning. Watching the air come out of the crowd of Yankees fans when they take over another ballpark is really a sight to behold. It's crazy how they're all complete sore losers. When they're winning, they're high-fiving. Yeah. Like Yankees fans are a different breed. I'm officially embarrassed to associate with them. And then I'm watching the broadcast at home because I can't go to the game. I'm busy with a number of other things. And I'm hearing Michael Kay, the announcer for the Yankees, saying, gee, I wonder why the Marlins look like they're not even scared to be playing the Yankees. The Yankees are one of the best franchises in professional sports. I know why. Aaron Judge, the best player, is out of the lineup. No one can hit. The managing and fielding is piss poor. The bullpen, which was now supposed to be a strength of this team, is its biggest weakness. And they're just not good. I mean, that's kind of the bottom line here. And I don't know if there's any quick fixes. I saw Anthony DiMaggio point out that we need Garrett Cole back. Yeah, but he's not coming back this season. They don't have a lot of good prospects. They're not getting contributions from the B-level players. Anthony Volpe seemingly only decides to show up when games don't matter offensively. And this is just not a cohesive group. I'm not going to say they're going to miss out on the playoffs at this point in time, but they're certainly skating toward that bottom wild card spot with 41 games left to play.
Yeah, I know HFL asked who's my baseball team. It's the Mets. I've been a Met fan since I was in diapers. I love the Mets, but unfortunately, how can I say this? They look like they're collapsing again. They had the best record at one point, and they've been under 500 since then. They are now 8-8 since the All-Star break. The Marlins are 11-5. But I can tell you, being on the show, you hear me talk at great length about Lone Depot Park, which also over the weekend, SummerSlam was going on at MetLife Stadium, which there were issues there. criminal issues there. Okay. I think they should bring the WWE to Lone Depot Park, which I know has 35,000 people there. I think it would be a shot in the arm in the neighborhood. Hialeah is a great neighborhood. Miami, of course, is Miami. I think the Marlins, if they started winning, you could see almost like a renaissance around the team where, you know, they've always had problems drawing, but maybe if they won, I mean, the Florida Panthers are the best team in the NHL. They're packed every game. I just think winning is contagious. And the Marlins are a young team. And although they may make a few mistakes, they play with some conviction. I've seen them the last couple of times I've been in the game. They play with conviction. They don't make any mistakes. You could tell that the team believes in each other, which is something that's contagious as well. So I don't know what the hell is going on with the Yankees. Remember, I love the people from the Bronx. It's the team. I worked in a 4-4 for a little bit of time. I just don't like the Yankees. They represent to me, like in soccer, it'd be Juventus. I don't like Juventus, right? I'm an Inter Milan guy. I almost hate AC Milan as much as them, but Juventus I don't like because they are the New York Yankees of soccer, you know? And I think there's a lot that went on in those years in the Yankees. But there's a couple of people I personally will like from the Yankees. I always liked Willie Randolph. He became my manager. I think the guy was better than they fired him. I think he was owed more than what the Mets. They should have let him finish the year at least, but they fired him. I liked him as a Yankee. I like Don Mattingly. I like Don Mattingly. I thought he was the consummate professional. It's a shame he didn't win a World Series because he was, at that time, he was the best offensive player in the major league before he hurt his back, I think. But we had Keith Hernandez, who was the greatest defensive first baseman of all time. So that's was always a contrast, but it's hard to hate Don Mattingly because like this guy showed up with a beard once. He was one of the few Yankees that before they allowed beards had one. He's like, he had a fight with Steinbrenner. It was classic stuff. To me, Don was like, that's like New York. The prototypical New York baseball player was Don Mattingly, a tough, rugged guy who hit home runs, big hits, but unfortunately played in the wrong era with the Yankees. So, I mean, these guys I respect, but as far as a team, I don't really go crazy over. And one last thing on sports. SummerSlam was this weekend. I thought it left a lot to be desired by the WWE. Great tributes to Hulk Hogan. I saw Nick Hogan was there. I don't know where his daughter is. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if she went woke. I have no idea. But Nick Hogan was there. They put him up on the screen. It was a big thing. I feel like some wrestlers don't know where to check their ego and at least go out there. Like I'm telling you, I respect the Yankees. I don't like them, but I'll respect them. You should respect the guy who's your forefather who created all of that for you. Instead, I saw people like Seth Rollins. I'm disgusted that Roman Reigns didn't go out there when they did a tribute on Raw for Hulk Hogan. You might be the tribal chief, but you're not Hulkamania. You're not even close. You should go out there and at least bow your head and say, you know, it's his final moment. The guy's gone. So I had a problem with a lot of different things. But the main event, John Cena wrestled Cody Rhodes. Now John Cena is a good guy. So you built this up. So anyone who thinks he's the greatest of all time, and I like John Cena, but he's not the greatest. Hulk Hogan is. John Cena turned heel, was a bad guy for 2 seconds. They were trying to say on social media, Peter Rosenberg, this leftist liberal,
don't even get me started. I mean, the guy was third wheeling on the Michael Kay show with Don LeGrand. Don't even get me started on Peter Rosenberg.
He hates Hulk Hogan, right? But he was sitting there. Oh, John Cena, the greatest heel turn. Nothing beats 1996 Daytona Beach, Bash at the Beach. Hulk Hogan turns to the New World Order. They're great. No one, when you saw that was it. That was like a bunch of new wrestling fans came. So there was that. I don't understand what that was about. They turned them heel to then turn them good to lose a SummerSlam. I don't know. I mean, the match was a good match, but still, I don't understand the whole John Cena thing. The night before with Seth Rollins coming in to take the belt and cashing in on CM Punk, that was an all-time classic. That was a great move by Triple H. who I saw is on a sports council for the president. Now he's with the but overall, I think it could have been a little better. Some matches, they were missing some. There was a tag team match that was outstanding. The tables and ladders, they got smashed, but overall, I'd give it like I'd say a B- because it could have been. There's some things left off. LA Knight wasn't there for whatever reason. Some matches were left off, but overall, pretty good. But unfortunately, don't have it at MetLife Stadium. It was real. There were reports of crimes. There was videos. I saw it. I said, "Oh my God!" They had that. You know where that Playland thing is, where that mall that's a disaster that we actually discussed on the show. They parked there, and there was some kind of brawl, and the cars were like in a parking lot. They couldn't leave. So thank God people got home safe. But man, know the outlier, know the area. That's all.
With Peter Rosenberg, not only does he give horrible sports takes and latch on to the tales of famous guys to kind of be the number 3 on shows, but he also gave Jeffrey Maddrey one of the most puffy interviews I've ever seen in my life on Ebro in the morning, right when the pandemic was starting. It was absolutely terrible. Anyone go check it out on YouTube. He kind of puffed him up, and that was probably part of the reason he got a promotion. But one more sports-related thing before I move on to my audit of the NYPD payroll and reveal some of the revelations that I found over the weekend. So the Mets are riding a little bit of a losing streak as well. And last night, Tyrone Taylor, when he represented the winning run, there was a double into the corner. And as he was rounding third base, Ryan Sarbaugh, the third base coach, decides to hold him up. Carlos Santana, who's the first baseman for the Guardians, is one of the worst defensive infielders I've ever seen of all time. Ends up bobbling the throw, so there would have been no return throw home. And Taylor's held up at third. He doesn't score the go-ahead run. In this frame that I'm putting up here on the screen, the ball is not even to the infielder. Taylor is rounding third, but the stop sign still comes up. I mean, with these teams right now, the Mets and the Yankees, I know Pete Alonso, who was 4 for 4 on the evening, struck out the batter after that. You expected him to at least put the ball in play. I get it, whatever. But like these teams are essentially inventing ways to lose on a nightly basis. You got the Yankees bullpen imploding. Their starting pitching is great. They can't hit. The Mets stage a nice little late rally. They make stupid base running decisions. And then lo and behold, the inning after that, Brett Beatty, who was inserted into the game to replace Ronnie Mauricio the inning earlier as a pinch hitter, he throws the ball away and he allows the Guardians to score the go-ahead run in the 10th. They went on to tack on an insurance run, and the Mets obviously never recovered. So I don't know if it's a combination of being bit by bad luck or these teams are just not that good and we're overestimating their potential because they have high payrolls and they play in a big market like New York City. But it feels like the ship is just sinking and sinking and sinking and sinking as fast as it possibly can, and that we're going to end up being disappointed with the end results for both of these squads.
Yeah, that's why you got to like the Miami Marlins. I know you used to like you were looking at the Tampa Bay the Tampa Bay Rays, but they have no stadium because they canceled that deal, so they're going to be playing at Steinbrenner Field forever now. That's going to be really bad.
Right. I mean, I think that's actually kind of like a low-key good thing. It's bad in the sense that we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Yeah. The Rays are one of the poorest teams in Major League Baseball, and they're paying the Yankees $10 million per year to lease their stadium. And somehow now the teams are competing for wild card spots. It's a little bit of a weird dilemma. And we do know that taxpayer tourism money from Yankees fans and New Yorkers who come down for spring training and used to go to St. Petersburg to watch the Yankees play the Rays at Tropicana Field, that helps fuel the economy on the west coast of Florida. We know that, but it's a little bit of a weird dilemma nonetheless. But anyway, on to the main topic of discussion today for the Producer's Take, because the title of this episode is Lawsuits and Scandals Continuing Plaguing the NYPD. So I decided to audit the payroll of the NYPD over the weekend because I had been tipped off by reporters, people in the media business, that there had been a lot of financial improprieties atop the department. So in looking at the top 10 highest paid employees, I'm sure you recognize many of the names that you're seeing on your screen right now by virtue of the Jeffrey Maddrey scandal. I came to realize that 6 of the 10 highest paid employees in the NYPD are They're rank and file people, right? They're lieutenants, they're detectives, they're not chiefs. And of the 4 other employees, 3 of them were stationary engineers. Now, Sal, let me just ask you a quick question real quick. Do you know what a stationary engineer does in the NYPD? Have you ever worked with one?
I probably might have. I don't know exactly what their job capacity means. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so I looked it up for good measure, and I found that they like repair boilers and do that sort of stuff, but seemingly they're paid very well. And when I was digging a little bit deeper, I came to find out that some of the people who were involved in these financial improprieties like got massive pay raises, and they were kind of scamming the system. So here's one example of one of said individuals. He's a lieutenant special assignment by the name of Christopher LaMarche. He was not named in the lawsuit. I'll get to another individual in a second, but he's a lieutenant special assignment who made $149,000 a year and about $80,000 to $90,000 a year in overtime in 2022 and 2023. And then we get to 2024, and it's like, wow, he gets a pay bump to $164,000 a year, $15,000 increase. And now all of a sudden his overtime numbers have ballooned to $180,000 of overtime. So I wanted to do a little bit of research because I'm thinking to myself, who is this guy? Why is he getting these massive pay increases? He was part of the Caban crew. That's evident because when you look on 58, he was appointed to the police commissioner's office in July of 2023. What happened in July of 2023? There was a transition of leadership. That was when Keechant Sewell stepped down and Edward Caban assumed the post of police commissioner. And there was another particularly egregious offender here as well. And I want to get your thoughts on this. He actually was one of the top 3 overtime earners in the NYPD. He's not been named anywhere, but I just wanted to do some research on him. His name is Rashard Jones. He was a police officer who reached top pay in 2023, but then you see he gets promoted to detective specialist, a $14,000 pay bump, well earned, right? He got a boost in rank, but now all of a sudden he's making $335 roughly $1,000 a year. He's making about $200,000 a year in overtime, and he's working in a detective squad. So, like, how are these guys making so much in overtime? And it just proved the fact that I named this at the very beginning of this segment, the fact that 6 out of the 10 highest paid employees in the NYPD were rank and file members under special assignment or detective specialist or detective grade, like second or first graders. They were kind of in that list as well. They were like rank and file people who were exploiting the overtime system in one way or another. It's very weird because the classic misconception amongst people in the NYPD is as you move up in rank, you get a better pension and you can walk out the door with more money. But with a fixed pay rate for chiefs and people in higher level positions, I know the chief of department usually makes around $240,000 under the assumption that they work 60, 80 hours a week, something like that. But it seems like it behooves you to stay at a lower rank, get one of these special assignments or promotions where you can get a lot of overtime, and then just walk out into the sunset after making $350,000 a year, $200,000 of which is overtime. I'll spare you guys the details for the sake of time, but I was also looking into some members of the PBA, and like there were people who were making $50,000 a year in overtime, $60,000 a year in overtime. And then oddly enough, the year before they retire, they make like $150,000 a year in overtime. So they're making like 101 in base salary, yet 260 in totality after overtime. Something doesn't look right. And I know people are doing this to help their friends out, give them better pensions, all that. But not all of these salaries are going to be able to fit under the budget. So these are the things that are going to lead New York potentially at some point in time. These are happening in other agencies too, but these are the things that are going to lead New York to financial difficulties, which could have the city on the verge of bankruptcy.
Basically, the crumbs crew strikes yet again. That's what you're saying. And the con sofrito crew, because you're saying that they're just handing out overtime. See, they're not; those people aren't finishing out their career. They're actually still working, but they're making a ton of money while others struggle, and they get put in get sent to psych services because they're victims of things and told to be quiet or else. That's what I'm seeing. Jack, what do we got coming up tonight on the, was it 10-4 Tavern, right?
Yeah, we have the 10-4 Tavern, and we have former Boston police chief superintendent coming on. I know we talked a lot about the Yankees and the Mets. He's not allowed to make fun of the fact that the Red Sox have won more World Series recently than either of those organizations. We like to have police people from all over the country, but he's not allowed to spike the football in the end zone about that. I'm sure he probably has some interesting stories about being security detail at Fenway Park when they won as well. Yeah.
I can tell you on Wednesday on Executive Perspective, they will be discussing the NYPD response to the active shooter training for both law enforcement and the public. That's with Rob, Luke Cash, and Ron Layson. Wednesday at 17:05, 5:05 Eastern. If you check out the Executive Perspective. Also tomorrow, 8:05, the Finest Unfiltered. John Eric will be interviewing Corey Pegues. The Corey Pegues. I know what you guys are thinking. That ought to be interesting. I don't know if he'll be asked about his Supreme Team days, his Crumbs crew connections, the Consofrito connections, but that ought to be wild. That ought to be wild. Special Hagen says, the Crumbs crew have put this crooked cabal leadership in place for over a decade. Reform is not going to take place overnight. Exactly. It'll be you the people constantly beating that drum, wanting accountability. If you stop, they're going to go back to the way they are. If you're, willing to keep going forward and keep banging that drum, you're going to change things. It's going to start slow and start to then build, which is what you're seeing with all these lawsuits. Okay. So that'd be a good thing. Thursday, I am pretty certain I'm going to have on Serena Townsend. We're going to discuss a few things about these lawsuits. Also, this P. Diddy getting pardoned by Trump. We're going to break down a whole case because there was a whole thing with that. Now Trump wants to pardon him. I don't know. Eric Adams might be running the government for all we know right now. So we're going to be getting into that. So don't forget to check out tonight, 7 p.m., 10-4 Tavern. Tomorrow, Finest Unfiltered, 8:05 live in the morning. Corey Pegues is their guest. 17:05 Executive Perspective. They're going to be discussing the active shooters. And, of course, I'll be back on Thursday with Serena Townsend. So before I leave, I'm going to end with this video. Curtis Sliwa was interviewed. So I want you to watch this. So I'm going to end this on this note. So before we play this, guys, thank you all for tuning in. Thanks to even the haters. All your opinions, some of your opinions matter. Not all, but your opinions do matter. We'd like to take all the criticism and all the comments. We do this all for you. Okay. Hopefully we could change things for the better. So with that being said, thank you all. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Please continue watching the Finest Unfiltered Network tonight at 7 o'clock with 10-4 Tavern. And I will see you again on Thursday. So, of course, I'm going to sign off from South Florida, which is a sunny place for shady people.
Well, obviously, they didn't do well in math. They probably failed in school. I start with 28% of the vote from the last time. I get up to 32, 33%. I'm the mayor. I'm surging. Where's Adams at 7%? Cuomo is going down. Mondami is flattened out. Those three Democrats are going to battle one another, and that's going to hurt all their numbers. I'm taking the high road, and with the Protecting Animals Independent line, first ever, I could get 35% of the vote. So all these naysayer Republicans, why would you say that if socialists come up and say to me, hey, you could win this? Democrats come up to me, hey, I looked at the numbers, you could win this. Republicans, are you bad at math? Did you fail in math? Maybe you need remedial training in mathematics. Look at the numbers. I am surging. I know you're not used to doing well in citywide elections, but we won with Giuliani 8 years, Bloomberg 12 years, Pataki 12 years, and weren't things so much better? No chaos, no corruption. Then we went back to de Blasio, Cuomo, Adams, more chaos, more corruption, and that's how Mondami came about. 6 months ago, nobody knew who Mondami was. Now he's an international figure. Why? Because Adams failed as a mayor and Cuomo failed as a governor. And now they're trying to reboot themselves. Well, guess what? Curtis Lee was surging in the polls. Adams, My God, he's below double digits. A mayor who has access to the media 24/7, 365, and millionaires and billionaires can't make that needle move because he's one and done. He's out. Right.
So this is a biblical moment. You know, when Jesus was on the cross, he said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. All these Negroes who are asking me to step down, God, forgive them. Are you stupid?